So, Rubber Tramp 2020 is a wrap, and Colorado is going to the dogs, coming up in this episode. Welcome to episode 12 of the podcast. And this podcast is available in both video and audio only, so you can listen to it on your mobile device and your podcast player, or you can watch it on YouTube at your preference. So, podcast, for those of you who are kind of new to podcasts, I've been doing this since the fall when I started, and they've been around for a while, but probably the best analogy I can come up with is a kind of like a radio talk show. And as opposed to my regular videos, which are more like travelogues. If you're new to the podcast, I typically include 3 sections in each podcast. I include a Nomad News section, which is news items ripped right from the headlines that are of interest to nomads and longtime travelers. I also have a topic for each episode, and then listener questions, where I respond to one or several questions from listeners from the previous week or two. Hey, if we're just meeting, I'm Robert Witham. I am a guy who's had a lifelong love affair with the open road and road trips. I create videos and podcasts, write books, make photographs, and publish a magazine all about the traveling lifestyle. Please consider subscribing either on YouTube or in your podcast player, then you'll always be in the know about all things related to the travel lifestyle. All right, so Rubber Tramp Rendezvous 2020. I recorded a video here recently during RTR 2020. That's available on my YouTube channel. If you're listening to this in the audio version, you can find that at robertwitham.tv, and that's one of the recent videos on there on the channel. So Rubber Tramp Rendezvous 2020 is now over, or at least it's over the time you're watching this. I'm recording this podcast over the weekend so I can have it ready for you on Monday. But by the time you're watching it, at least on Monday, it's over. The last session is at 10 o'clock on Monday morning. So the 2020 Rubber Tramp Rendezvous was actually the 10th annual RTR. It was also the first not to be held on public land outside of Quartzsite, Arizona. So this year, the RTR was instead held at the La Paz County Fairgrounds between Quartzsite and Parker, and was different also because it was a day-only event with everyone camping off-site in the surrounding area, like Quartzsite, Baus, Ehrenberg, Parker, across the river at Earp, California, probably some other places as well. Those are the ones I know about. So that made it a little different this year. Now, the change in venue, I want to mention, was not, if you're not already following this news, was not voluntary or arbitrary on the part of the event organizers. They had wanted to do it again in the same place they've been doing it, in the desert outside of Quartzsite. But the event had grown so large, each year growing massively, that BLM permit fees were just astronomical. And the bottom line is that's not viable for a free event. When you go to like Burning Man or something like that, you're paying, it's a lottery system to even get a ticket, and you're paying quite a bit of money to get that ticket. Since RTR is a free event, they just can't shell out 6 figures for permit fees. And on that note, and I know a lot of people were surprised at how high the permit fees had gotten this year, and Bob has talked about that on his YouTube channel. But I saw in the news recently, the Burning Man organizers are actually suing BLM right now over what they describe as excessive permit fees. So I'll be watching this closely to see what happens with this and how this all shakes out. I've not heard any justification on BLM's part as to why the fees are so high for these larger events like RTR and Burning Man. So it'll be interesting to see what they provide as a response for why they're charging so much money. Oftentimes with federal agencies, any permit fees or application fees, license fees, that kind of thing, are pegged to the actual cost to the agency of providing those services. So when you apply for your passport, the cost is supposed to cover the expenses for the State Department administratively and printing and things to give you a passport. So it's a little bit, this is a little bit different. It seems like the fees are quite out of line now for some of these larger events compared to the cost to BLM of processing the permit and any remediation afterwards. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. But in the meantime, this is definitely putting a pinch on some of these other events where they're looking at these staggeringly high fees, and unless you're able to guarantee a certain number of people and charge a certain amount of money to cover that, you just can't do that as a free event. And I'll note here, too, that because then we ended up at the La Paz County Fairgrounds this year, it is difficult to find venues that can accommodate hundreds of people at a gathering site or on a stage or whatever, and accommodate thousands of people camping on site, especially true in this area. I know this because we worked on an event with To Meander and trying to organize a meetup in Quartzsite, and we were looking at alternatives to the RV park we've been using, and boy, we could find some places that we could have maybe 50 people, and that was it. We just couldn't find any venues where we could have 100 or more people and have camping on site. So I know it's a problem. There just aren't a lot of facilities, especially in this area, that can accommodate that. All right, so the upshot of all this is people had to camp in Quartzsite, Ehrenberg, Parker, Erb, whatever, in the area, and drive in for on-site seminars and events, or just to see people that were at the official gathering, an official event. What this meant, though, was fewer people on site at any time, and people were also able to be more intentional about their camp location and their camp mates. Now, people could technically do that before anyways, but this just kind of really facilitated that, so people were able to connect with people and camp people they wanted to camp with, and they were able to camp where they wanted to camp. So that was the kind of the upshot of all this. Bob has said that they will continue to look for options in the future that will allow camping at least closer to the event, if not at the event. So if you want to stay up to date on the latest details about those things, you'll want to follow either the Cheap RV Living YouTube channel, which you're probably already aware of, or the Homes on Wheels Alliance website to get those details, and that'll be the accurate information from the source. And I'll have links to both of those in the video description and on the show notes if you want to get more details about what's being planned for next year and going forward. Now, I do want to say that, everyone I have talked to here, and it's a small sampling of all the people that have come on the different days. I'm working full-time, and so I do get out periodically and talk to people, both friends and new people I'm meeting, some viewers. I will meet some viewers here, so that's really awesome. But everybody I've talked to here has been having a good time and is enjoying the event. And I also say that compared to the last few years, everyone here seems more relaxed. I think it's just a little less hustle and bustle, so I think it's a more relaxed environment, and everybody's very friendly. And I'm sure you come in here and talk to enough people, you'll find somebody that doesn't seem very friendly, but by and large, the vast majority of people here are very friendly. So my opinion is that this has been an overwhelmingly positive event. In fact, this has been the best RTR yet, in my opinion, of the 4 that I've been to, 4 winter RTRs, because it's not so crowded and overwhelming. And for some people, that's fine. For me, I tend to find that the way it's been the last 3 years to be kind of overwhelming, and so I end up leaving early because I've had enough after a while. I mean, it's fun to see everybody and meet people and talk to people, but after a while, it's like, okay, I need some space. So it's been really good as far as I'm concerned because it wasn't so overwhelming, and I think that would be good news to a lot of people who have wanted to come to. I've heard a lot of people who want to come to an RTR at least once to experience it, and they're like, hey, it's just too much, it's too crowded, I don't want to be there with thousands of people. So a lot more manageable this way because people are coming in for the day. Some people come for a few hours and leave, or they might come for the morning or for the afternoon. They might come one day and not another. So I don't have any idea how many people are in the desert around here attending some part of the RTR event, but they're not that many here at one time, which is kind of cool. All right, so I'm not going to give a lot of space to this, a lot of airtime, but I will note, I'm aware that some people have been griping online. The negative comments I've seen, and this is not exhaustive because I don't follow this stuff, and actually I haven't even seen another YouTube video about RTR. I've only seen what I've done because I don't have time. I'm too busy working and creating freelance and creating content for this channel and for the magazine and things like that. So I don't have time to watch all that stuff. But the comments I have seen that were negative, they're from people who are not even here. Okay, and that's important to keep in mind. Here's the thing: there are people who are negative no matter what the situation. It's also impossible to host an event of this size without some people complaining. So don't listen to them. That's all I can say there. If you think it would be fun to attend a future RTR, whether you've been before or not, just do it. I mean, don't pay attention to the trolls and the haters. There's always people who are going to complain and look for something to criticize. Don't pay attention to them. And don't worry about whether the event will be perfect, because no event is perfect. Well, here's the bottom line. Like so many things in life, your experience at the RTR is what you choose to make of it. So if you come in here with a bad attitude, looking for things to complain about, you're going to find things to complain about. And if you come in here with a good attitude and a positive outlook and you're looking to have a good time, you're going to have a good time and you're going to enjoy yourself. That's really what it comes down to, is what you choose to make of it. And there's plenty here that's good and that you can really enjoy if you choose to do so. And again, I'll have links to the official RTR web page at the homesonwheelsalliance.org site and the Cheap RV Living YouTube channel in the video description and the show notes in case you want to check those out to follow along. And now it is time for some Nomad news. All right, so Colorado's going to the dogs. Well, maybe not literally, but there is big canine news out of Colorado this last week, though. And I am excited to share it here with you in case you haven't heard it yet. A wolf pack has been observed in the northwest corner of Colorado, the first time in nearly 100 years. So this is big news. Colorado Parks and Wildlife announced the news on January 22nd. So what led up to this, on January 19th, wildlife officers were out in the middle of nowhere in the northwest corner of the state investigating a large animal carcass that had been found that was surrounded by wolf tracks. While they're looking at the animal carcass, the wildlife officers heard wolves howling in the distance. Now, I got to pause right there. Can you even imagine that experience, right? Now, hearing coyotes yipping in the distance is enough to, kind of be interesting, right? I've never heard a wolf howl in the wild, so hearing a wolf howling in the wild would be like thrilling. To hear an entire pack howling in the distance out in the wilderness would be, that send shivers down your spine. That is just really cool experience. So that aside, officers heard the wolves howling and they pulled out their binoculars and were able to spot a half dozen wolves or so, they believed, in the distance, about 2 miles away. So the officer, they were watching the wolves through their binoculars for about 20 minutes and eventually decided they were going to try to get a little closer. Well, by the time the officers arrived where the wolves had been seen, they were long gone. But there were plenty of fresh wolf tracks in the snow, and the tracks measured like 4.5 to 5.5 inches. That's a big. That's like that's a good size paw print, seriously. And they appeared to have been left by at least 6 wolves. So a statement from Governor Jared Polis, governor in Colorado, he says this is a historic sighting. While lone wolves have visited our state periodically, including last fall, this is very likely the first pack to call our state home since the 1930s. I am honored to welcome our canine friends back to Colorado after their long absence. It's important that Coloradans, and I'll interject here, Coloradans and anyone traveling through Colorado, understand that the gray wolf is under the protection of the Endangered Species Act. While the animals have naturally migrated to our state and their presence draws public interest, it's important that people give them space. Due to their protected status, there are severe federal penalties for anyone that intentionally harms or kills wolves in our state. So, totally cool news, and don't mess with the wolves if you see them. So Colorado Parks and Wildlife is requesting that anyone who sees or hears wolves in Colorado or observes signs of wolf activity complete an online form to help wildlife officials track the animal's activity and location. And I'll have a link to that online form and to the news release from Colorado Parks and Wildlife in the show notes at robertwitham.com/episode 12 and in the video description on YouTube. All right, so now that Colorado's gone to the dogs, it's time for listener questions, and I haven't recorded a podcast in a while, so I don't have any listener questions for this episode. I think I've answered everything in the YouTube comments and stuff. I don't have any fresh questions. So post your questions on YouTube in the comments below this podcast video or on social media, and I'll select a few to answer in an upcoming episode. You can find all my social media links either in the video description on every video on YouTube or on my website at robertwitham.com/subscribe. So I've had this podcast on pause for a little while, and I've had a lot of people request that I bring it back, so they really enjoy it. So I'm considering bringing it back probably on Mondays, but we'll see how that goes with the days. But it'll be the same day every week, and I'm considering bringing it back on a regular basis weekly with 1 to 2 travel videos also each week. So if this is on Wednesday, there'll be a travel video on Thursday, or maybe one on Wednesday or Friday, something like that. So let me know in the YouTube comments or on social media if you'd like to see regular podcasts again.